In this lesson, you'll learn how to reconcile medication allergies. James was recently seen by a cardiologist and we received an electronic CCDA. We're currently viewing clinical reconciliation from James Williford's chart. The medication allergies display with an EHR section for allergies that are already documented in the chart, an import section with the allergies that are documented in the CCDA, and a reconciliation summary section. James confirms that he has a history of allergic reactions to trimethoprim, which is listed in the import information with a default action of add. This allergy needs to be added to his chart, so we won't change the action. James states that he doesn't have an allergy to ezetimibe. Let's fix this. Click the action field of the ezetimibe row. Click the drop-down arrow. Click Ignore. Penicillin is set to ignore because it has a match. Click the action field in the penicillin row. Click the drop-down arrow. Click Replace. Since the EHR penicillin and the import penicillin were matched, they display in the Data to Match section. You can evaluate the items to decide which one to keep. In this example, the existing EHR data contains the reaction, so we'll keep that one. Click Cancel. Penicillin remains listed under Unchanged, so no action is performed in the reconciliation summary. Medication allergies can be matched or unmatched here. The action for EHR allergies defaults to Keep, which is the correct status for James's allergies. If needed, the action drop-down arrow has the options to resolve or delete. Click Confirm. A warning message appears. Click OK. Good job. You reconciled all of the allergy information. To view the changes, you'd click the Reconciliation History tab. Now, let's view the Medication Allergies module in NextGen Enterprise EHR. Click Close. Click the Medication Allergies button. The new allergies have been added to Medication Allergies in James's chart. Trimethoprim was imported from the CCDA. Click Trimethoprim. The allergy is automatically marked as recorded elsewhere and the source is added. To scroll down, click here. In addition, the medication allergies are marked as reviewed with the user, date, and time of review. The Medication Allergies tab of Clinical Reconciliation can be accessed by clicking the Reconcile button. You've now learned how to reconcile medication allergies. In this lesson, you'll learn how to reconcile problems in clinical reconciliation. Problems are stored in NextGen Enterprise EHR using SNOMED CT codes. The existing data contains problems that appear to match problems listed in the CCDA. Depending on the codes received in the CCDA, some matches may need to be performed manually. Let's look at the process for problem reconciliation. James was recently seen by a cardiologist and we received an electronic CCDA. We're currently viewing clinical reconciliation from James Williford's chart. Serum cholesterol raised has been matched automatically. Visual impairment and visual difficulty have been matched as well. Problems can be matched or unmatched here. Benign hypertension and atypical angina have defaulted to add. James states that he doesn't have hypertensive disorder. He has benign hypertension. Let's fix this. Click the action field for benign hypertension. Click the drop-down arrow and select Replace. In the existing EHR data section, click Hypertensive Disorder. To replace hypertensive disorder with benign hypertension, click OK. The action for the hypertensive disorder in the EHR grid has changed to Delete, and the benign hypertension action in Import Data is now Replace. The changes are also listed in the Reconciliation Summary. To replace angina pectoris with atypical angina in the EHR and import sections, follow the on-screen instructions. Now, let's look at an action menu for the EHR problems. Click this action field. Click the drop-down arrow. You have the option to keep, resolve, or delete a problem. Problems that are no longer active should be resolved. Delete will default if a replacement problem is selected. Problems should only be deleted if they have been entered in error in an unlocked encounter. To keep this problem as is, click Keep. Click Confirm. The success message displays. Click OK. The problem reconciliation is complete. To view the changes, you click the Reconciliation History tab. Click Close. Click the Problems button. To view more of the window, click the History button. The reconciled problems are listed in the Problems module. The concept ID is the associated SNOMED code. Problems that have been imported from the CCDA are automatically marked as recorded elsewhere with the associated source. You can view the Problems tab of Clinical Reconciliation by clicking the Reconcile button here. You've now learned how to reconcile problems from Clinical Reconciliation. In this lesson, you'll learn how to add diagnoses to Next-Gen Enterprise EHR from Clinical Reconciliation. James was recently seen by a cardiologist and we received an electronic CCDA. We're currently viewing Clinical Reconciliation from James Williford's chart. Drug interaction check for diagnoses is not supported in Clinical Reconciliation at this time. Drug condition interactions can be manually checked from the Billing ICD list in the Problems module. The Diagnosis Codes tab only has an import section that allows you to add ICD billing codes to the patient's history in the Diagnosis module. The default action for diagnoses is none. James states he was diagnosed with elevated cholesterol with elevated triglycerides and angina pectoris. Click this action field. Click the drop-down arrow. Click Add. To save time, I'll change the action for angina pectoris to add as well. A code can be set to replace an EHR code if you feel it's more appropriate than an existing code. Click the action field for unqualified visual loss both eyes. Click the drop-down arrow. Click Replace. In the existing EHR data section, click Unqualified Visual Loss both eyes. Click OK. Since James has benign hypertension and mixed hypocholesterolemia, let's set these diagnosis codes to ignore. Follow the on-screen instructions. Great. I'll set pure hypercholesterolemia to ignore for you. To save the changes, click Confirm. A message appears. Click OK. We're done with diagnoses. Click Close. Now, let's look at the diagnoses that we added. Click the Problems button. Click the Billing ICD List tab. The ICD codes that were added from the CCDA are listed in the grid. They're also added to the Patient Diagnoses section of the Diagnosis Selection tool to make searching easier in the Encounter workflow. In this lesson, you've learned how to add diagnoses to Next-Gen Enterprise EHR from Clinical Reconciliation.
In this lesson, you'll learn how to add procedures to Next-Gen Enterprise EHR from Clinical Reconciliation. James was recently seen by a cardiologist, and we've received an electronic CDA. We're currently viewing Clinical Reconciliation from James Williford's chart. This tab only has an import grid, and you'd use the action field for each procedure to make your changes. The default action is none. Procedures must be reconciled before implantable devices, or they won't be linked. Each procedure can be linked to one or more devices, but an implantable device can only be linked to one procedure. James states he recently had a pacemaker implanted, so let's add this. Click the action field. Click the drop-down arrow. If you wanted to replace this procedure with an existing one, you'd click here. Note that you can't make any updates if an encounter is locked. Click Add. Click Confirm. A message displays stating that you can view the changes on the Reconciliation History tab. Click OK. We're done reconciling James's procedures. Click Close. Click the Procedures button. The new procedure is listed here. To scroll down, click here. You can view the Procedures tab of Clinical Reconciliation by clicking the Reconcile button here. You now know how to add procedures to NextGen Enterprise EHR from Clinical Reconciliation. In this lesson, you'll learn how to reconcile immunizations. We're currently viewing clinical reconciliation for the patient James Williford. The immunization data was imported through a CDA. In the EHR section, drop-down options are not available. In the import grid, you can choose Ignore, Add, Replace, or None. James recently received an immunization for Tdap, which is listed in the import grid with a default action of None. The system will set the immunization to a status of None in the import view when no match is found. The system determines this based on the immunization administration date and CVX code. Tdap needs to be added to his chart, but James states the date is incorrect. To scroll, click here. He said he received the immunization on 1/18/2018. To fix the date, click in the Date Administered field. You can type the date or use the calendar. Let's use the calendar. Click here. Administered dates can be full dates or just the year. Click the right arrow. Click the 18th. Now that the date is correct, let's add it. To scroll, click here. Click the Tdap action field. Click the drop-down arrow. Select Add. The influenza vaccine is generic because it was a historical entry and the manufacturer was unknown at the time. The CDA imported a specific vaccine, so we need to replace influenza with flu. You can only replace immunizations that have been documented as historical entries. If the immunization was administered by your practice and documented at the time of administration, it can't be replaced here. In the import grid, click the Flu action field. Click the drop-down arrow. Click Replace. In the existing EHR grid, click Influenza. Click OK. The original order status was changed to Canceled, and a new order will be created for the replacement with a completed status. To see more details for the immunizations, click here. Here you can see that James refused the pneumococcal immunization, so we'll leave the action as None. To save the changes, click Confirm. A message displays stating that you can view the changes on the Reconciliation History tab. Click OK. Immunizations can be imported from an immunization registry as well, if a registry interface has been set up for your practice. Let's take a look. Click the Documents tab. Click the Immunization Registry tab. Click Immunization Registry. The Immunization Registry is a dynamic record that keeps an up-to-date log of all imported and current immunizations for the patient versus the CDA, which is a static record of a specific encounter. The import process can be performed manually, or your practice can set up a background business processor job that will automatically query the registry. Notice the changes we just made based from the CDA are reflected in the EHR section. The default action for the registry is Add, but you can perform the same actions that you used when reconciling from the CDA. The imported registry data shows that James received the zoster vaccine. James confirms this, so we'll keep this as Add.